The emergency session of the Galactic Council had convened on short notice. The usual decorum had been replaced by an air of palpable tension. Representatives from the Eoxan Collective, the Lithari Dominion, and the powerful Victra combined glared at one another, each species wrestling with the same question. How could humanity have done this? The chamber, an enormous opulent hall suspended in the heart of an asteroid belt, was lined with seats filled by alien dignitaries. They watched with unease as holographic displays flickered, showing images of Earth's unexpected assault. The Zarmin trade convoy, a heavily guarded armada that had been carrying essential resources through the Parman sector, lay in ruins. But it wasn't the scale of the destruction that left the Council speechless. It was the attacker's signature. Human ships, sleek and angular, had emerged from nowhere, tearing through the convoy's defences with a precision and efficiency that left the Zarman fleet commander, Admiral Piran, no time to react. In mere moments, the convoy was obliterated. The attack wasn't an accident or a spontaneous outburst. It was deliberate, surgical, and devastating. The Zarnan representative, a towering, bulbous-eyed diplomat named Vrax, spoke first. His voice trembled, barely masking his rage. This is an act of war. Earth has no right, no capability of attacking our fleet. A ripple of murmurs swept through the chamber. Most species had long written off Earth as a species of barely advanced primates, only recently emerging into space. They had never imagined humanity could possess such power. Councillor Cora, the stoic representative from the Lithari, leaned forward, her many-eyed gaze fixed on the screen showing Earth's emblematic flag, a blue and green orb encircled by a simple ring of stars. This was not a random act. The humans must have developed technology far beyond their supposed capabilities. How long have they been hiding this from us? The Oxan delegate, Mikhail Jara, who had always advocated for peaceful coexistence with humanity, sat in stunned silence, his large, webbed hands resting on the table. He had long warned the Council that humanity's potential was underappreciated, but even he had not expected this. A soft voice cut through the tension. Supreme Speaker Antha of the Victra Combine, the oldest and most respected voice in the room, leaned into his microphone. His many arms folded, his black scales shimmering. We are faced with a new reality, one we never saw coming. The question now is not why, but how. How do we respond? The chamber fell silent. A new chapter in galactic history had begun, and the Council was no longer in control of the narrative. Back on Earth, the shockwave of the attack reverberated through every nation, every city. The world had never seen anything like it. For centuries, humanity had been a spectator on the galactic stage, observing, occasionally reaching out, but always ignored or dismissed by the larger powers. Now Earth had struck back, and no one knew the full story behind this sudden leap in power. In a high-security underground facility, deep beneath the Nevada desert, General James Collins stood before a massive holographic map, his hands clasped behind his back. The war room was quiet, the only sound the hum of advanced technology. His team of military leaders, engineers, and scientists crowded around him, their faces grim but resolute. Collins was a man of few words, but even he couldn't mask the pride in his eyes. This moment, the culmination of years of covert research, was more than just a military victory. It was humanity's defiance against centuries of galactic oppression. Phase 1 was a success. Dr. Elizabeth Green, the lead scientist on the project, said, her voice steady but filled with excitement. Our prototype ships performed beyond expectations. They'd integrated perfectly with the cloaking technology and the disruptors. She paused, glancing at the display. The disruptors have completely neutralized enemy shields. We've hit them where it hurts. Collins nodded, though his thoughts were focused elsewhere. They had always known the risks of revealing Earth's hidden capabilities. For decades, a secret faction within Earth's government, known only as the Terra Initiative, had worked tirelessly to reverse engineer the alien tech discovered in the wreckage of a crashed ship near the Siberian tundra. What began as a handful of researchers in the 21st century had turned into a global effort by the time the first major breakthrough had come in the 2040s. Advanced AI, faster-than-light engines, cloaking technology, and devastating energy weapons. Everything had been developed in secret, hidden from the eyes of the galaxy. But now, Earth was no longer hiding. The gloves were off, and humanity was ready to stake its claim. Collins turned to his second-in-command, Colonel Maria Vasquez, a fiery leader known for her tactical brilliance. Prepare the next phase. The Council won't sit idle after this. They'll come for us. It's time to send a message. Vasquez's eyes gleamed. Already in motion, sir. We've got intel on their next convoy. We'll strike before they even know what hit them. Collins looked at the map again, his expression hardening. This isn't just about defending Earth anymore. We're not going to wait for them to make the next move. We're taking the fight to their doorsteps. Let them know that we decide the future now. The room hummed with quiet approval. Earth's retaliation was just beginning, and the galaxy had no idea what it was in for. The hum of Earth's war machine was louder than ever. Across the vast reaches of space, humanity's sudden rise had sent shockwaves through the galaxy, leaving the Galactic Council in chaos. The first attack on the Zarman convoy was only the beginning. But now, as the Council deliberated and feared further strikes, humanity prepared to strike again. Admiral Olivia Novak stood on the bridge of the Vigilance, Earth's flagship, a sleek, black vessel designed for stealth and speed. Behind her, the crew worked efficiently at their stations, the helm of the ship's advanced systems filling the air. The mission ahead was crucial. They couldn't afford mistakes. Novak glanced at the tactical screen, which displayed a detailed map of the Parman sector, a strategic choke point for interstellar trade between the Council's major factions. In just a few hours, a high-priority Zarman convoy would pass through the sector, carrying supplies vital to the Council's war efforts. The convoy would be heavily guarded, but Earth had an advantage that the Zarman couldn't anticipate. Status report. Novak asked her first officer, Commander Ethan Drake, a seasoned veteran who'd fought in Earth's earlier conflicts. Drake turned from his station. All systems are go, Admiral. The cloaking devices are fully functional, and the disruptor arrays are primed. We're already within range of their hyperspace jump point. They won't even see us coming. Good, Novak replied, her voice a quiet razor. When we hit them, I want to make sure they never forget that Earth is not to be trifled with. The Zarman fleet, already stretched thin by their previous engagements with human forces, was about to be blindsided. They didn't know it yet, but Earth was already inside their defensive perimeter. As Novak gave the order, the Vigilance powered down its external lights and activated its cloaking system, disappearing from all conventional scanners. The ship was now a ghost, unseen but deadly. Meanwhile, on the bridge of the Zarman flagship, Admiral Braun monitored the convoy's status with growing impatience. "These humans think they can intimidate us," he muttered to his officers. "They're nothing but a nuisance. We'll crush them like insects." He never saw the human ship closing in, cloaked and deadly. The Vigilance dropped out of hyperspace directly in the path of the convoy. its weapons systems charging in a deadly synchronized attack. The Zarman flagship's shields flared to life, but the disruptors hit their mark, shattering the defenses in an instant. The rest of the convoy, helpless to respond, was torn apart in a brutal, precise assault. The message was clear. Earth was no longer a forgotten backwater. Earth was a force, and the galaxy had better start taking it seriously. The aftermath of the Zarman convoy's destruction rippled through the galaxy like a storm. Earth's audacious strike had crippled a major interstellar trade route, and the Council was in disarray. But while the galaxy trembled, back on Earth, the human resolve was only strengthening. In a fortified command centre beneath the Rocky Mountains, General James Collins stood before a massive wall of holographic displays. The attack on the Zarman convoy had been a calculated success, but now came the hard part, ensuring the galaxy knew humanity wasn't done. The destruction of one convoy was just a small taste of what Earth could and would do. Phase 1 was a success, Collins muttered to himself. His cold, blue eyes swept over the maps and intelligence reports. But that's just the beginning. We've got to make sure they understand. The Terra Initiative, the covert faction responsible for Earth's newfound power, had been working in the shadows for decades. They'd cultivated resources, developed technology, and trained an elite military force, hidden from the prying eyes of the Galactic Council. Now, humanity was ready to step out from the darkness, no longer content with being the exploited underdog in a galaxy of ruthless conquerors. Colonel Maria Vasquez, a fiery and sharp-witted strategist who had once served in the U.S. Air Force, approached Collins. She was a woman with a reputation for getting results, and her fierce loyalty to the cause was unquestioned. "General, we've got intel on another convoy, this time a Victra supply run. They're transporting critical war materials, and we know exactly when and where they'll be. They won't even see us coming." Collins turned, his jaw clenched. The Victra were among the most dangerous species in the galaxy, advanced, calculating, and ruthless. If humanity could strike them with the same devastating efficiency, the Council would have no choice but to pay attention. "Good," Collins said, his voice low but resolute. "We hit them hard. We hit them fast. But we don't just send a message to the Council. We send a message to every species out there. Earth is done being a victim." He turned toward the holographic display, tapping a few commands. Maps of the Victra fleet flickered to life. "We're no longer just defending Earth, Colonel. We're starting a revolution." Vasquez's lips curled into a tight smile. "Understood, sir. It's time the galaxy learned that humanity doesn't kneel to anyone." The human fleet, now bolstered by years of secret advancements and unwavering determination, was ready to rise up and claim its place among the stars. The age of Earth's silence was over. The galaxy would soon know that humanity was no longer an afterthought. Earth had become a force that would no longer be ignored. The Victra convoy was scheduled to pass through the Dresnar Nebula in less than 48 hours, carrying vital supplies to fuel the Council's war efforts. Intelligence had pinpointed their exact coordinates, and now Earth's forces were preparing for another precision strike. The Bridge of the Vigilance was a hive of activity. Admiral Olivia Novak paced in front of the main display, her eyes scanning the data streaming in from Earth's reconnaissance satellites. They had intercepted communications confirming that the Victra convoy, a fleet of 5 heavily armed ships, was en route to the heart of Council-controlled space. Novak had no intention of letting them make it that far. "Commander Drake, status report on the fleet?" she asked, her voice steady but edged with urgency. "We're ready, Admiral. All ships are primed and cloaked," Commander Ethan Drake replied, not looking up from the console in front of him. The Vigilance is fully equipped with the disruptor arrays, and our strike force is in position. They'll be in range in 2 hours. Good. We're hitting them fast. No mercy, Novak ordered. But make sure we're not just another raid. We need to send the message that Earth will never back down. Across the galaxy, tensions were rising. The Council, in its effort to maintain control, had begun organizing retaliatory strikes of its own, but nothing seemed to slow Earth's relentless offensive. In response, many of the Council's fleets began to reassign forces, shifting their attention to the newly identified human threat. Some factions were starting to prepare for all-out war with Earth, but not without consequences. As the Vigilance and its strike force moved closer to the Victra convoy's last known location, the Victra High Command had issued orders to double the convoy's security. They weren't fools. They knew the humans had struck before, and they weren't about to let it happen again. But Earth's technological superiority, combined with their guerrilla tactics, had already rendered traditional defenses useless. The strike was swift and merciless. The human ships decloaked in the midst of the convoy, their disruptor blasts cutting through shields like a hot knife through butter. Within minutes, the Victra fleet was a smoking wreck, the ships torn apart by surgical precision. But the cost was steep. While the Vigilance remained virtually unscathed, the aftermath of the raid had left several of Earth's smaller vessels damaged in the crossfire. And worse, the Council was already mobilizing its forces. This time, Earth's enemies were growing bolder. Back at Earth's command center, General Collins watched the unfolding chaos with a grim expression. He knew this wasn't just about military dominance anymore. "This will escalate fast," he muttered. "The Council won't take this lying down. We've made our point, but now the real war begins." The galaxy, once indifferent to Earth, was now on the brink of total conflict. The Victra convoy was the latest casualty in a growing war, and Earth's military prowess had caught the attention of the galaxy. The Council had never seen anything like this. Humanity's sudden, brutal rise from obscurity to power had unbalanced the entire structure of galactic politics. Alien species who had once ignored or oppressed humanity now found themselves in open conflict with a force they were ill-prepared to face. But while Earth's strikes had been precise, it had come at a cost. The Vigilance, though virtually undamaged, had sustained minor but costly hits during the Victra raid, and several of Earth's smaller vessels were now in need of repairs. The battle had been a resounding success, but it had proven one critical point. Earth's forces could no longer afford to operate in isolation. Retaliation from the Council was coming, and it was going to be brutal. In an underground war room in Washington, D.C., General James Collins stood before a massive holographic projection of the galaxy, his face set in grim determination. Beside him, Carol Maria Vasquez scrolled through intelligence reports, her expression unreadable. Earth's sudden rise had caught their enemies off guard, but it had also drawn the attention of every major faction in the galaxy. "We've destroyed their supply lines, crippled their fleets, and humiliated them," Collins said, his voice low but firm. "Now the Council is scrambling. They won't stop until they wipe us out, or at least make an example of us." "I know," Vasquez replied, her voice cutting through the tension. "But that's not going to happen. We've got allies now. The Drathi, the Centauri, hell, even the Euxan diplomats are starting to see our potential. The Council can't hold its fragile alliances together much longer." Collins nodded, but he knew it wasn't enough. Even with growing support from defecting alien factions, the Council was vast and powerful. The coming war would be a fight for survival. Meanwhile, on the icy moon of Yar, Admiral Olivia Novak stood in front of a massive fleet of human warships. The Victha raid had set a precedent, but the real test was coming. The Vigilance was ready, but Earth's fleet, though growing, was still outmatched by the combined forces of the Council's elite fleets. The time for hit-and-run tactics was over. It was time for Earth to go on the offensive. "We may not have the numbers, but we have the resolve," Novak said to her crew, her eyes cold with purpose. "We fight to win, or we don't fight at all." As the fleet powered up, Colin's voice echoed in Novak's earpiece. "Take the fight to their doorstep, Admiral. Make them regret underestimating humanity." The countdown began. In the heart of the galaxy, the first major battle of the war was about to unfold, one that would shake the foundations of the Galactic Council to its core. The reckoning was upon them, and humanity was ready. The Galactic Council, now reeling from the constant raids and humiliations inflicted by Earth, had been forced to make a desperate choice: unite or perish. Factions that had once operated with little regard for one another had been forced to ally under one banner, pooling their resources and fleets to mount an all-out assault on Earth. Earth had become the galaxy's greatest threat, a rogue power that couldn't be ignored or underestimated any longer. And so, the Council amassed its fleets in what was being called the Final Campaign. A vast armada, nearly 300 ships strong, was being marshalled for a decisive strike against humanity's homeworld, a direct, all-out assault to crush the growing human rebellion before it could spread further. On Earth's side, the war had taken a heavy toll. Earth's fleet was larger now, but still underpowered compared to the full might of the Council's united fleets. For the first time, Collins and his senior commanders realized the bitter truth. This wouldn't be a battle won by strategy alone. They would need everything they had, every weapon, every ally, every advantage. In the underground command center in Colorado Springs, General Collins stood before a live feed showing the mobilization of the Council's forces. His hand gripped the edge of the map table, his eyes sharp and calculating. Cairo Vasquez was at his side, watching the same footage, the weight of the impending battle settling in. "We can't hold off a fleet of that size for long, sir," Vasquez said, her voice steady, but with a trace of doubt. "Even with our cloaking and disruptor tech, we're outnumbered 10-1. The Council's forces will overwhelm us if they come all at once." Collins didn't flinch. "We don't need to hold them off. We need to make them bleed." He tapped a few commands on the table, pulling up a map of the Sol system. "I've already ordered a preemptive strike. We'll engage the bulk of their fleet in the Oort cloud. The Victha and Zarnan warships are being diverted there now." Vasquez nodded, her expression steely. "And what about Earth itself?" "Earth will be the final prize," Collins said grimly. "We'll lure them in, make them think they've won. But once they enter Earth's atmosphere, they'll walk straight into the teeth of our planetary defense grid. We'll take down their flagship, break their command structure, and cripple their forces. Then we hit them where it hurts, their supply lines, their trade routes, their homeworlds." At the same time, on the bridge of the Vigilance, Admiral Novak stood poised, watching the Council's vast fleet drift toward Earth, preparing to launch the most audacious counterattack of the war. She turned to her crew. "This is it. If we fail, Earth falls. But if we succeed, we'll send a message that will echo across the stars." Her hand rested on the command console, and she stared at the holoscreen showing the approaching enemy. "We fight with everything we have. We end this, or we die trying." As the final battle loomed, both sides prepared for the clash of a lifetime, one that would decide the fate of Earth and the entire galaxy. The Council's combined might was on its way, and humanity would make them pay every inch of the way. The galaxy was about to witness Earth's last stand. The final battle was upon them. As the Galactic Council's combined fleet moved into the outer reaches of the Sol system, Earth's forces were already in position. Every warship, every fighter, every defense grid had been prepped for this moment. On the Vigilance, Admiral Olivia Novak stood at the helm, her eyes cold with resolve. Earth's fleet, smaller in number, but equipped with superior technology and a will to survive, was ready to engage. All ships in position, Commander Ethan Drake reported, his voice calm but tense. The Oort cloud will be the first stage of the operation. Once we draw them in, we launch the second phase, Earth's defenses. Novak nodded, her hand steady as she issued the final orders. Remember, this is our one shot. We lure them in, destroy their command ships, and cripple their fleet. No second chances. The tension on the bridge was palpable as Earth's forces slipped into their formation. The countdown to war had begun. Meanwhile, on the Council flagship, Supreme General Dorith of the Lithari Dominion surveyed the growing human fleet with cold disdain. "Let them come," he sneered. "They believe they can stand against the might of the Council. We will break them in an hour." The Council fleet, a mix of Victhra, Zarman, Lithari, and Oxen ships, moved into position, their guns charged and ready for the annihilation of Earth. They underestimated humanity's will and the cunning of Earth's commanders, however. As the Council fleet passed through the Oort cloud, the first wave of human ships decloaked, dazzlingly fast, more maneuverable than any of the Council ships could have anticipated. The battle began in a blur of fire and explosions. Earth's disruptor weapons tore through the Council ships' shields with frightening precision, while human warships darted around like ghosts, hitting vital points in the enemy's formation. Within moments, chaos erupted. The Council fleet's arrogance began to show cracks. Their ships, which had once seemed invincible, were now vulnerable to Earth's advanced technology. But the true surprise came when Earth's planetary defense grid activated. Dozens of massive orbital cannons targeted the Council's flagship, the Triumph of Unity. The ship, the symbol of the Council's collective power, was suddenly surrounded by a web of coordinated fire. In a desperate move, General Zorith ordered all ships to form a defensive perimeter around it. But it was too late. Earth's firepower was overwhelming. A massive explosion split the Triumph in half, sending a shockwave that rippled through the battlefield. With their command ship gone, the Council's fleet faltered. In the chaos, Earth's forces pressed the attack, picking off ship after ship, systematically dismantling their enemy's forces. The tide had turned. As the last Council ship retreated in disarray, General Collins stood at the command center, watching the victory unfold. He turned to Carol Vasquez, a faint smile crossing his face. "We've won. This is the dawn of a new era." The war was over. Earth had not only defended itself, it had shattered the Council's grip on the galaxy. The message was clear. Humanity was no longer a weak, forgotten species. They had become a force to be reckoned with. And as the remnants of the Council's shattered fleet limped away, the galaxy would never be the same. Earth had carved its place in the stars, and no one would dare forget it.